Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky, a podcast where I sit down with some of my friends in the local Columbus, Ohio theater, film, and improv scene and talk a bunch of geeky stuff. Some of it good, some of it bad, but all of it definitely geeky. If you enjoy our program, be sure to subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts and to leave a review or subscribe wherever you can get podcasts. Our official sponsor of the show is Audible. With over 200,000 titles to choose from, get one audiobook and 2 Audible originals each month included with your trial, even once your trial ends and normal membership begins. Best part is you own your library, meaning you keep the books even if you cancel with easy exchanges. So if you don't love a book, swap it out for free anytime. Sign up for your free trial over at audibletrial.com/goodbadgeeky. Download the Audible app and start enjoying your new audiobook now. Also, support for this podcast has been made possible by our Kickstarter backers, Ashley Carson, Catherine Ranella, Wooz, Yannick, Doug Poeta, Christopher LeBlanc, Andrew, Kenny, Jerome Wetzel, Casey May, Anonymous, Tavia Ordway, Anthony Portillo, Jen and Brian Petrie, Guest 16554255418, Laura Spires, Kimberly Barr, Kyle Jepson. We here at The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky want to advise listeners that this episode was recorded during the pandemic between the end of 2019 and the end of 2020. In this episode, I am here with
Sam Clements
and
Nathan Haley.
And we're going to sit down and talk about the Disney Pixar film Onward on this episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky. A word of warning that there will be spoilers of playing, not just on this and just about anything we may talk about, so listener, please beware. And if there's anything you want to say about Pixar, Disney, or the film Onward, join in on our conversation by interacting with us via social media or email. Twitter and Instagram is username goodbadgeeky or email at goodbadgeeky@gmail.com. We may read your comment on a future episode of the show. All right, well, thank you guys so much for doing this. I'm really excited because I think this was the last film I saw in theaters with my wife. I did, yeah. What was frustrating is
good. I thought this was one of the first movies released on Disney Plus.
It was, but what was frustrating was my wife and I saw it in the theater, and a week later, it was on Disney Plus, and it was just like, are you serious? I could have just, I mean, not really. I would have
known that a global pandemic was going to take over, and
that's true. But at the time, it had to be 2 weeks because I remember about a week later is when my workplace was like, oh, we're shutting down. Like, you're going home and working from home and stuff like that. So, oh yeah, I know. Well, of course, though, we're like this far along, and I'm still working from home, which I'm not ultimately complaining on, but I am wanting to go out into the world and see something else than, my lovely Hollywood estate.
I'm getting so used to seeing your guys' backgrounds. Like, I feel like that's the only way I can imagine you guys now is with that exact background behind you.
You know what? That would be a good idea for a Halloween costume, is you take a picture of your background and you somehow put it behind you, so everywhere you walk, it looks like that's your background. You're like, oh, I'm a Zoom call.
Oh, gosh.
Somebody did that.
Did they really? That would be so awesome.
There was a video of someone's Halloween costume, and they were on a screen, so I don't know if they were doing an impersonation of a Zoom call or not, but they actually had something hooked up to where that you were watching them do something.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not usually good at Halloween, though. I tend to just... So I think that could be, it's like Fat Thor. That could be my year for a Halloween costume, is the Zoom call. Because you just take a picture of what's behind you, and then you can just somehow create a device that it's behind you, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. It's like Fat Thor. I'm already fat. Just give me make me look like the dude in a beard, like a Thor beard, and we're good. So yeah, Onward was a weird film for me because we saw it then, and so I haven't watched it since until literally, last night. And but being that I've already seen it once before this, I'll pass it off to you guys, and I'll start with Sam first. Sam, what did you think of the film? First thoughts on the film when you saw it?
So Onward was a film that I saw with the kids. It was one of our movie nights that we did. Mm-hmm. So we had the youngins watch all together, and whenever I see a lot of big actors like Chris Pratt and now Tom Holland getting all the roles he's getting right now, which is insane. I'm cautiously optimistic sometimes. And, when I saw this movie, I was just so happy with it. I loved it. It incorporated a lot of things that I love from, my hobbies and interests. And then, of course, I got wrecked with the ending, which we'll talk about later, I assume. But
yeah, oh yeah. Well, when you said you're cautiously optimistic about the actors, is it because like you usually tend to enjoy them and the movies they do or the projects they do choose, and so it's just like, oh, I really like them and I don't want to like not like their movies or something like that? Or
well, I mean, so optimism is because there's talent there, right? I can't say there's many things Chris Pratt's done that I don't like, but the caution comes with, unfortunately, like Chris Pratt, he plays himself. Right? And in this movie, you could really hear the Chris Pratt in that character, of course, and see a lot of it. And I want to make sure, and especially with animation, where there's just so much possible with different characters and different voices and so much potential in those movies, I want that to be realized and not just another, here's Chris Pratt playing a Chris Pratt character, or here's Tom Holland playing the same nervous wreck as he is. But I mean, I guess that's casting too.
I get you. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more too. But Nathan, what was your first thoughts on the flick?
It's not that it's a bad movie. Again, very predictable.
Yeah.
Great music, visually stunning. Just all the scenes. It's amazing what like animators can do now. But it just seemed like a comedy Lord of the Rings. Like they go on a quest, they discover this, friendships, doubts, and then there's a little twist at the end, and all of a sudden it all comes together. The end. But the acting was pretty good. It wasn't really acting, just like Sam said. Chris Pratt hasn't actually done. He's just playing himself in everything he does. There's no talent there. But he does a good job as Barley. He's playing the I can't grow up character who grows up, blah, 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 blah. And then the nervous Spider-Man boy.
Yeah, Tom Holland.
I wanted to see more of the Manticore. And I wanted to see more of Mom. But I don't know how much you want to. Do I start talking now, or do you want me to just stop there?
Well, you know what? You broke the dam, Nathan. Let's go for it. Let's keep chugging along.
I wanted the mom just seemed like having. And again, I never know with these movies if there's going to be a sequel. Sometimes they leave out characters for a reason. Like, hey, they're going to be mentioned more in this. I don't know how you'd make an Onward 2, but maybe Dad had another secret, or maybe Mom had a secret, because we're talking about a land that used to be all wizards and now they're not, but now they are again. I don't know. But if there isn't an Onward 2, I would have wanted to have more of a story about Mom, maybe more of a backstory about Dad, or especially the Manticore, because the whole thing, their survival is dependent on getting this sword. You have to, and all this, Barley's talking about, following this Dungeons and Dragons realm thing. And it's well, hey, this woman just happens to have a restaurant. Let's go see her. And they do. And it's 45 minutes, and then she's not in the movie. And then it's oh, I need my sword. She and Mom are on for 9 seconds. Oh, here's my sword. They're on for 9 seconds. Here's the end. Here's what you got to do. They're on for 2 minutes. So I would have liked to see more of the Mom and the Manticore, just because I thought those were actually really cool characters that were set up. But originality was wonderful. The whole Cheeto thing that blows up, or Frito or whatever, Cheeto, Frito, whatever. I thought that was so cool to use that as a raft. The fact that you can set one on your tongue and it dissolves in 30 seconds, if they survive the whole trip while going 40 mile an hour. But it's magical science or whatever.
I was expecting them all to be dyed orange by the end of that too. I was like, how are your clothes intact after that much Cheeto dust?
But again, like Nick sometimes will hint at, I will allow myself to accept the premise of the movie, and then I will find things that are just so annoying. But I went into it watching it like a little kid, like how a little kid would watch it. And I would say I ended up watching it a second time because I watched it back when it was probably.
Oh, you did too. Cool.
Was it back in April?
It was February, March.
Oh, was it? Okay, then I probably watched it in March. But I just remember when I watched it for the second time, I thought I could appreciate it a little bit more. The Pixies are freaking funny. I love the little Pixies.
The biker chick as the bikers.
Yeah, the biker Pixies. And it was just interesting. Like, I couldn't imagine being a centaur and never running. Like, I use a car. The fuck he does. There is no way. Do you see how large that man was? Did you see the vehicle he's in? There's a reason why they don't actually show that fucker getting in that car and getting out of that car, because he can't.
Well,
there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Well, I think it also...
But, for the kids... And I've rambled a lot, so go ahead and ask another question because I stopped talking.
No, here's the thing. Like, you're not wrong. Like, sometimes the joke in itself is that he
would have
run.
broken chair sitting on it. The chair he sat in at the table, unless they have like reinforced mahogany, fucking chair's breaking. The average weight of a horse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I understand how hard it is, how hard it must be for someone to use magic to light a fire. And if you can walk over and turn a light switch on, yeah, that's easy. But there's a part of me, it's just like, at what point do you think not floating in the air, flying around?
That confused me too. I'm like, why would you want to, like, if you could run up to 60 mile an hour, like...
Well, I think it's very clear that our society is not bright. And 2020 has shown us this. So it's like when you watch Star Wars as a child and you go, oh, this could never happen again. That, fascism and all that stuff. Like the public would willingly be okay with it. No, they can't be okay with it. Just like, you have to, that's why I just kind of do think like I don't understand it personally, but I'm also in the minority. It feels like sometimes when it's just like, yeah, that is wrong. Also, magic is cool. I want to fly everywhere with my staff. But at some point, other people might not want. And so
it's like me with pizza. Everybody is shocked that I say if pizza were to be erased from the planet, that's fine.
That is a crime.
But it can go away and that would be okay. But maybe it's because I'm surrounded by pizza that I don't care. So maybe that's what it is with the magic. Maybe it's because they were surrounded by it.
Well, so, and for context, for those who don't know, Nathan works at a pizza shop. Like, he runs the ovens, he does all this stuff. It's a family thing. So, yeah, I didn't have to deal with that. Like, I was the guy that, like most families, every once in a while you order a pizza and then it becomes every Friday night kind of thing. But, you order a pizza and that's where it ends usually. Maybe you get a job at a pizza place, but like, it's not end all be all. But like, that's what you've done for I can totally see that too being the other end. It's like, I hate using magic. I'm around it all the time. I want something non-magic-y. You know what I mean? That's a different angle to go to. But the concept alone that was it the Centaur, just like that in itself is the joke. And I forgot like him with the long luscious mane. And just the vital Sassoon, waving it in the Jesus God, that was.
Speaking of his aesthetics.
Yes.
Can we talk about his pants? He doesn't have pants, right? So, but he has a belt that he's tucked his shirt into. Does that mean that shirt is that perfectly around that belt? Like, how does that work?
I don't. Yeah, because then at that point, is the belt part of the shirt? Where literally all you do is you just tighten it up and it keeps the shirt on? Like,
I just need to know if it's just me. Did anybody try to physically imagine him and the mom having sex? Like,
no, apparently.
I am now.
Debate of where the wiener is. Just like there's a great debate. How would a centaur wear pants? Do the pants go over the front two legs or do the pants go horizontal underneath? There's that great debate. How would a centaur wear pants? I'm literally wondering how she's not dead because they were obviously together before the magic, pre-magic. So were they intimate before and like what's going on? Like,
well,
you worry about that. Like,
yeah. Oh man. See, this is where
you watch before you want. It's for the kids. Like, you don't think about that stuff, but I did, and I'm just like, I don't understand.
So here's the thing, man. The things we're talking about right now, I truly do believe in the depths of my soul that someone at Pixar in the story department, storyboards, whatever, talked about it. Either they talked about it themselves, or an executive looked at that and said that why do they have pants? Why do they not have pants? Can we see its wiener? Like, what's going on there? And it's like, isn't that technically bestiality because it's a horse and the half elf, or what's going on with that? And it's like,
are they elves? I don't even know what they are. I just know
they're elves.
Yeah, they're elves.
Does it say that in the movie? And they
say it really quick. I think it's when the mom's looking for the manticore. When she pulls up, she's like, I'm looking for two elves. They're really young, and that's when the Manticore is like
in their realm, and it was just okay.
Yeah.
Sense. I just didn't want to judge based off their ears.
No. Well, I mean, that's a good start. That's a strong start, Nathan, for the podcast, talking about not Manticore, talking about Centaur penis. Fantastic. Thank you. No. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Great shirt, by the way.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's a good shirt.
My mom got me this shirt.
Oh, okay. Not anybody else. Fair enough.
No one came to Todd's and brought me shit.
Hallelujah.
I told you Ghostbusters glows in the dark, right? Mine. I know that's sidetracked.
This part will get cut out.
You can from this if you want to. Yeah. But yeah, I turned the light off in my room, and I forget where I saw standing in front of my mirror, and I'm like, why can't I read that so clear? And I just about shit myself because I had no idea. I just thought that was.
I forgot to tell you it was glow in the dark.
I was really surprised, but I wasn't pissed.
Yeah, so with Onward, so the Centaur, and then, so let's talk about the casting with Chris Pratt a little bit more, because I do feel like you're right. You guys are both dead on the money. It's that, and this is one of the things, is like someone who follows voice acting, the three of us voice act for Radio Hour, I
don't really do much.
That's not true. Well, but the thing is that, here's the thing a lot of people forget, is that voice acting is really acting. It's 100% with your voice. If you can't act, some people think if you can just do an impersonation of like SpongeBob SquarePants, you're voice acting, and that's not necessarily how it is. Like, the three of us are good actors, I would say, on a base level, and then voice acting is another tool we have in our toolbox. Sometimes with these films, though, and the voiceover community, the big films are not loved as much because they do stunt casting, and you're technically hiring that person to play themselves. And unfortunately, it's not like Mike Myers, where Mike Myers does have a unique voice for himself. It sounds like Wayne, except for he doesn't say "party on, dudes." But then you get Shrek, where he does his Scottish accent, which he's only done, I think, at the time, he only did it in like one film, which was So I Married an Axe Murderer, and that was it. But he didn't do, I think, Goldmember or Austin Powers 2 until after the first Shrek. But, that's voice acting on a very good level, but it's not Mike Myers just doing, it's not like Donkey. It's not like Eddie Murphy I'm just being Eddie Murphy who I like waffles. You're just being Eddie Murphy at that point. You're not doing anything extra, and sadly, I do feel Chris Pratt does that in this, and it is a systematic problem with a lot of, I feel, big films like this sometimes, because with animation, you are wanting to hear something unique and different, and it's like, why not hire the people who do the voices on Futurama? They can do unique voices and characters, but will that get butts in seats, though? Unfortunately, but going a step further, Chris Pratt usually, and Tom Holland now, is, Nathan was right too, Tom Holland's also been doing the same thing. He's been kind of playing the nerdy, shy kid, which I think he's trying to get out of. I haven't seen it yet. There's a movie he does on Netflix where he kind of plays like
He's going to be the main character in the Uncharted movie, which is a very Indiana Jones character.
Based off the video game?
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, that's quite different from what he's used to. So I'm intrigued. Hopefully it's gonna, I've never seen him, so I'm wary, but I'm hopeful, I guess.
Yeah, I am too. Like, I've heard forget what the name of the project is on Netflix. I think it's like The Devil's something or other, but he plays like a Southern drawl or something like that. I've heard he's really good in it, and it's like a drama. There's no superheroes or, animated like elves or anything like that. It's pure drama, but I heard he's good in that. But I'm still I've just seen, and I have not, have you guys seen Spies Like Us?
I have not.
The Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase from like that.
That one I have.
Well, yeah, that one I have, but what's the one with Will Smith and him where Will Smith gets turned into a pigeon? I thought that was something.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I just don't know.
Spies in Disguise, I think, or Spy in Disguise or something. Maybe that's what it was. But Tom Holland plays.
I didn't know Smith was in a spy movie.
Well, it's an animated spy movie. Honestly, even if the movie sucks, the trailer has the best joke that I've seen, I'm assuming, which is he turns into the pigeon, and because pigeons have their eyes on the side of their head, everywhere he goes, he can see almost like 480 or something. That's not even possible. 360. He can 360. So he's seeing both sides of his butt, and way he turns. I thought that was funny. I'm not saying the movie's worth that beyond that, but Tom Holland plays the same thing in that too, man. But here's the thing. Do they play their parts well on this, even though they are probably playing technically themselves? It's stunt casting. But do we feel like they did a good job?
I don't think they did bad at all. I mean, you can tell, obviously they worked with each other prior to Onward in the shows. Because I remember watching a documentary on Monsters, Inc. and how John Goodman and Billy Crystal were like, well, if we're going to be in this whole movie together, we need to be in the same room together, feeding off each other. Which I guess, I always thought the actors actors just kind of stood in like a row and they talked to each other. They did like maybe like 2 hours of shooting or something, took a break, took 2 hours, went home, came back, did it again. I always thought they were together. I never realized that it's just like you in a room and maybe I don't know, I'm gonna like a producer, or I'm gonna say some like a sound mixer, I don't know, but not any other cast members. So like Chris Pratt and
Holland,
his name, Power Ranger, what's his name?
Power Ranger, Tom Holland.
I can't remember his name.
Just call him Power Ranger. We'll know who you're talking about.
But like they have a good their rapport with each other came out pretty well, and I think it's because they didn't really have to act; they could just be themselves, and they knew how the other would probably react.
Yeah, that probably does help too, because I don't know if they got a chance to actually act in the booth that much. I haven't seen any clips of them together in the booth. I know they did press together when the movie first came out, but I don't remember, because you're right. I remember the whole John Goodman thing is that both Billy Crystal and John Goodman were recording separately, and they're like, we're not feeling this. We need to get together. The problem is, it's like when they got the three kids who do, or the 3 people that do Huey, Dewey, and Louie in the new DuckTales, it became kind of too rambunctious. And they only got like maybe 2 or 3 sessions of them together, but they didn't get a lot of stuff that they needed. So then they had to split them back up again. But yeah, Nathan, you're not wrong either. There are some shows wow, surprisingly, you're not wrong. There, Futurama and Simpsons. Well, Simpsons used to. Simpsons is now everyone's so big that they don't have to record together anymore.
They used to record all in one room?
They did, yeah.
Like I know, like when Aerosmith was a guest on the show, like in the credits you would see them like saying their lines. I didn't realize they were all in the same studio, or like when NSYNC did their show and they showed at the end of the episode NSYNC like doing their lines. I didn't know that they were all in the same.
I mean, that might have been far enough in the Simpsons run that they might have already started not doing it together. I just know like when not Michael Jackson, but like in the first few seasons especially, like all the cast members talked about getting a chance to meet at like a table read, like Albert Brooks and all those people, meeting them at table reads, meeting them at the recording, and getting a chance to work with them. And then years later, you don't hear that as much anymore. It's just more like, oh, I had to go in on my day off and meet or whatever, because it's Dan Castellaneta's day or something crazy. But they used to do that. Personally, I like the way we do it for Radio Hour, which is similar to what you were talking about, Nate. That's how I prefer doing animation if you're going to do it, because, you know, the 3 of us can bounce off of each other way more. That's
what I thought. It always, to me, it seemed to make the most sense. Like if you're going to be talking to somebody for an hour and 30 minutes, you should see them or see their face. Or sometimes the funniest part is the reaction, and your next line, like what's that, piggyback off of that or something like that. So the fact that most of these movies, they're just like in a room by themselves, I would commend them even more. But yeah, I mean, yeah, but I still think that Chris and Tom,
yeah, you're getting better. You're getting better.
Correct. I still think they did. I mean, I still think they did well. But I mean, they're a dime a dozen characters. You could honestly, I mean, just like Sam said, you could tell like they were just chosen because they're big at the time. Like there's no real talent that somebody else knew couldn't do.
And that's an interesting little thing. You know, I've never truly thought about it till now, speaking about it, but it puts more pressure, not on the actors for acting ability, but on the casting directors for casting, right? Trying to cast it. They're the ones who have to truly know the characters to determine who they think is going to, 1, get the most butts and seats, like you said, and 2, actually do justice to the role. So, you know, it's an odd little switcheroo there.
It is, and there's this fun little nerdy thing. If you guys ever get a chance, Andrea Romano, she has since retired because I think she started losing her hearing a little bit, but she has pretty much done voiceover directing, you know, the stuff that we grew up all watching. Even I would say, Sam, you're a little younger than Nate and I, but even your stuff too. I think she retired about 4 years ago. So from like 1981 all the way to now. So like Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, DuckTales, pretty much the entire Disney Afternoon, almost every Nickelodeon show, all the way up to probably, oh geez, I forget when I think the last Ninja Turtle show. She was the voice. She casted them, she directed them, and so like all those cartoons, that's a lot of cartoons. Like she has had a hand in some way, or she's worked with everybody. She knows how to work with them, and and hearing her talk. If you ever see an interview with her, or hear an interview with her, it's really choice, because for her is all based on acting ability. Like you know, especially if you would watch Batman the Animated Series back in the day, you know, you didn't do cartoon shows if you were a professional actor. It's like, but the problem is that you either did movies or TV, and then cartoons, I would say, were probably a little little like a ladder below that, unfortunately, unless it's like a big animated movie for Disney. Like you didn't like that was the weird ring, and now it's like, well, movies are either animated or they're superheroes, so now everyone's moving to TV. There's like a weird mix, but like they would hire classic 50s and 60s actors to do, or even people from like the guy who plays Bull in Night Court, an old NBC show. He is the voice of Two-Face in Batman the Animated Series, and he's terrifying kind of in that voice. But
is that guy still alive?
Yeah, he is. Richard something.
Oh, is he the guy? He's not 7 feet, but he's pretty tall.
He's really tall. He was bald in the show. He wasn't really bald.
I remember Night Court.
Yeah. And it's so weird because you didn't really. He always talked with kind of like a demure stupidity because that's how the character was. But he's a classically trained actor, and a lot of like Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. It's so weird to watch him go. He's just a big nerd anyway. He's like super passionate about whatever, uses his hands a lot. And I talked to George Lucas and I said, I don't know if I can say this line. And then he sits there and goes, he busts into the Joker, and it's just like, holy shit. And like his whole body changes, and but he went to acting school. He did his time, and that's what she looks for. And sometimes I feel like you get like Frozen. Kristen Bell, I think, is a very good actor, very good actress. I have faith in her, but again, she can't do many voices or anything like that. But that's an example I felt like, but Chris Pratt, we've not really seen him do much outside of his shtick. Really, you're just getting Chris Pratt for his improv ability, probably, or his zingers and delivery. And Tom Holland.
Can you do that in an animated movie?
It's hard.
Like, I think their mouth is saying all those words. Like, we think like all the thousands of words that are in it, like when really the mouth is just, isn't it like if you took the sound away, you wouldn't have any idea what they were saying? You know what I mean? Like, we think they're saying like, I love cookies, but the mouth is really just making you think that, right? Like the mouth is not designed to say, I love cookies, right?
It is actually designed to say that. It's harder for us to read.
Can they do that now? Because I know a long time ago that was not the case.
Well,
but like in Onward,
yeah.
Can you improv, or do you have to stick? You have to stick to the script, right?
You stick to the script, but sometimes, it's kind of like what we do for Radio Hour, Nate.
Animated.
It's not animated, but it's in the same guise. It's like, if someone makes it, like, say Sam has a line and he does like a little quick improv at the end of it, and Jim will be like, I like that, keep that in. The only difference is that they have animation, they have you record every line probably about 40 times. That's, I think, the other big difference. So
they couldn't add Sam's improv unless they went to the animators and said, hey, he added this, now we've got to, you see what I'm saying?
Well, they usually record, so what they do is each film is different, but they usually, from what I understand, is they do storyboards first, they do a temp, like a rough edit of the film, and then they write the script, or they already write the script. Sometimes it depends on how the writers are going, but once they have the script in, then they will pass it over to the voiceover people or the actors who are cast. And sometimes with animated films, they'll completely re-butcher the movie and redesign it from the ground up. So they'll have to redo the script like 20,000 times.
Oh, I always thought they animated it first and it's like the lines were kind of just like programmed into what. Okay,
that's more like for dubs, for like if you're dubbing for something for like Japanese animation or something. That's when you really have to. The actors have to be strict, but
yes. Or on Sam's point, ADR. So it's like they got the basic dialogue, but you might need like some grunts, or maybe they cut part of your scene out, but the way the animation's looking is that they might need another grunt or something from you because it's another character shot and their dialogue's fine, but your mouth looks like it's still moving or something, or it's weird stuff like that. But so Chris Holland's in the movie. Chris Holland, Chris Pratt. The mom who Nate was talking about earlier is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and it's Elaine or the.
You couldn't pay me to watch Seinfeld, but
Madam
I love her. I can't remember. I think I remember watching season 1, but I haven't watched.
Well, you now have access to HBO Go, so you can watch it, or HBO Max.
No, I know. But
okay.
I don't remember how. Because also, who else was? Oh, what's her name? My girl.
Oh, Anna
Chomsky. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chomsky. Yeah, it was interesting. And then, that whole show has just great acting.
I have not yet. I'm actually not someone who watches a lot of TV and movies, unfortunately, which is a odd take because I know a lot of people who do these kind of podcasts, or Ashley, for example, have seen, they watch all the time. So I tend to go in things with a pretty fresh eye when I do watch something.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious if that reference even landed, just because I know before you and I have talked, and I don't want to pressure you to ever watch the movie, but I didn't know if it was one of those things where it's like you might not have seen Star Wars, but like the line I am Luke, I am your father kind of thing, which is like the girl from My Girl and Macaulay Culkin, he dies of bee stings or something.
He does.
He does. You don't ever need to watch it. All you really need to know is that he goes into a forest to get a ring for her, and he gets stung by the bees, and he dies. And it's sad. And yeah. I just watch that movie now and just go, oh my God, Dan Aykroyd is acting with Jamie Lee Curtis, and they were a couple in Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. And that's all I remember when I watch it now. And then, what's that? Oh yeah, he plays the tuba, right? Or she does. He does?
I came out wrong. Women can play tubas and they can be lovely, but he does in the movie.
Oh yeah. Well, no one said anything about how well. Oh, I see. Good save, Nathan. Good save. So in terms of Onward, though, the thing is, the plot, I guess we should talk about real quick, is this far along, is the one son was born soon after, or probably right after.
He never got to meet his dad. Barley got to meet his dad, and he has 3 memories, and then at the end, shocker, which wasn't a shocker to anybody, he has a fucking other memory. Like, who did not see that coming? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of get that. Like, Barley is an upbeat guy. Like, I have not. I guess we're going to kind of get to the ending now, Sam, just because it ties into a little bit. But not to get too heavy here, but my cousin died of cancer, and I was there when they pulled the plug. And I've lost a lot of people in my life, and some people I've been in this. My grandmother, I was kind of near the room when it happened or whatever, but it hasn't hit me like I did with my cousin. And it's hard because the only memory I have of her now, it kind of trumps all the others, is that last memory. But if I think of other memories, though, it's just that always tends to win out, and it's the hardest one. So I understand, like, you go, yeah, I got 3 memories of some. I don't know. That felt like a very. I mean, it's a weirdly generic, like 3's the magic number kind of thing. But also, he was a little kid when his dad died, so it's a very weird thing. But I don't know. I guess that didn't bother me too much because I knew it was gonna. I didn't know the story was really going to be about the older brother needing to meet the dad versus the son, Ian, needing to meet the dad. I thought it was going to be more about Ian in terms of who gets to meet the dad. I thought that was a lovely twist.
I didn't see that coming. Part of me was like, well, what if Barley got this? But only because Ian couldn't, not because Ian chose it. So it was like a symbol of him, I guess, growing up throughout in the 24 hours they had.
And here's the thing. The relationship is going to be continuously growing too, I think, because here it says this is something else out there. I don't have any siblings at all. I know I'm an only kid.
I knew. Sorry, Nick's an only child.
Yeah, but like Nathan, Sam, do you have siblings at all?
I have 2 older sisters.
So you have 2 older sisters. Well, Nathan has two older sisters and a younger sister, and I can't even imagine if something like that happened to me. Technically, being raised by an older sibling. I mean, technically, I was expecting at some point he would figure out that his older brother was his dad, but I didn't really understand, or I don't know, I just didn't think they would hit it the way they hit it in the movie. And I really, I will say the first time I watched it, I was kind of let down because I felt like Ian's whole purpose of the movie was just to meet Dad, and instead he sacrificed that chance for Barley instead, and it was kind of a bummer. But the second time it did land, where I think they were trying to make it land, and I don't know what the difference is. I don't know if it's just because the pandemic sucks and I'm just in a different state.
Are they fucking outside?
Are they fucking outside? Yeah, I don't know, but it did hit harder this time. Right? Sam, what about the ending hit you? Because you were saying that you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
I mean, it was to me it was a 1, 2, 3 punch, right? Because when I was watching it with the kids when I first saw it, and I was oblivious when he was making that list. I never thought they were going to connect the list, not like to the father, but to the brother, right?
Yeah, I honestly didn't think they were going to do that either. I thought it was going to be one of those things where we will see that he connects it later down, but like they won't actually show it like officially, like, oh my God, I do that with my brother. I do that with my brother. I just thought it would be a thing like they would show it in a different way. Yeah.
So like that one, got me a little choked up in a way because, I can imagine, I'm very empathetic with the idea of not having that father figure, but, realizing you had that father figure all along, right? Because, especially in the clips they showed back, like, he's a really good brother. As, some of the, life choices he made, I don't know what he's doing there, but, like, in terms of his brotherhood, he's excellent.
How does he afford Charlene? No, what's her name?
Charlene.
Charlene, yes. That's a different car, Nathan.
But, like, he was good, and some of the small little, especially those small little clips they showed of them as children, right? Which kind of tied, his memories together in that way. You're like, okay, those are things that a kid should not have the capacity to do to another kid to a degree. Like, in the playing, the, faking like he was the one injured. Something that small. It doesn't happen that frequently with two kids playing. Yeah. The, instigating and truly trying to help him overcome his fears, with the diving board and such. That's not stuff that kids normally think about. So that was like, he's a good brother.
Well, I forget what it was. It was very early on. So Sarah rewatched it. My wife watched it with me. And it kind of, I wasn't even in that mindset, but she was just like, we need to pause it. I was like, why? And she was just like, we just need to talk about how good of a brother Barley is. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, he's annoying the shit out of his little, because it was very early on in the movie. They haven't even got to the staff yet. And she's just, some of the things, she's like, well, he's a good brother to him. It's just like some possible life choice issues. But like, she just wanted to address it and make sure we understand. I was like, thank you, I guess, yeah. And I started thinking about, I was like, yeah, he really is. Like, he's watching out for him on a different level than most siblings may or may not. In my brain, I would feel like I watched I guess it's a different relationship too, because they both have something in common, is that they lost their father, and just and different plane of one knew him and the other didn't. It's a very interesting relationship, I guess, that they're trying to. And I think, and I heard, I don't know if you guys saw this, but it's actually based on the guy who wrote it. I think it's Dan Scallon. It's based on his relationship. It's a love letter to his brother, because his dad died when he was super young, and his brother raised him practically. So it actually, that makes it more of a punch in the feels. And apparently he didn't know it either. He had been working at Pixar and Disney for years, and he invited him into a screening and didn't tell him. And so by the end of the movie, it was just like, that's for you, bro, or whatever. And it was like a big... But what else? So what was the 1-2 punch for you? It was the memories of the kid?
So the first punch.
Boom.
The second was, him choosing not to see his father and really push, Barley towards that, which is a selfless act. Which Barley's been selfless the entire time. It was Ian's turn to be truly selfless, because he's been, honestly... And he has every right to be selfish, but he's had a very selfish run for the movie. Everything was doing it so he could be with his father, right? It was really his, up to him. So him being selfish and then taking that moment to be like, you know what? You do it. It's really important for you. It was great. And then the last one was, as, childlike as this might be for me, was that last hug he had with his father, Barley, that very final hug. Yeah. And then, of course, with I'll give it a 0.5 with him saying, he gave me something to give to you.
Yeah.
That like, those three kind of, one after the other kind of, got me a little bit, very much.
It did hit. And well, can I also say, interesting back in that final battle leading up to that was the mom doing her yoga or whatever. Or not yoga, her dancing, jazzercise, going up the back of the dragon. I didn't notice it the first time I watched it, but that's what she was doing. And she's like, I'm a powerful warrior. I'm like, what is she? Oh my God, she's doing her jazzercise exercise thing.
And you have to assume, actually, so this is one big aspect of the movie that I actually really didn't realize the first time, but realized the second time, was that, in the first time I was like, oh, it's all very D&D-esque and very fantasy, and then I realized this time, no, it's a historical movie, right? Barley, everything he does, he's not like he's a D&D magic, no, he's a history nut, because that's his history. And then with the mom, I guarantee whatever jazzercise is based in actual fighting in a warrior, because if you look into the past, there were, classic warriors. So she probably learned it.
Never thought of that. That is... Yeah, well, yeah, and that's one of those things that's really... So, technically, and I think what was interesting is they don't ground it in the concept of so like, I'm sure how they pitched it to the higher ups at Disney was just like, what if D&D was real, and what if D&D was like how reality was, and then it just evolved with science, and now no one does the D&D stuff anymore. Like, there are dragons and shit, but they're all, like, they're dogs now, or like the Manticore owns a restaurant because she can't be a ferocious Manticore anymore. Like Like, and I'm sure that's how it was sold, but like they don't really make it the focal point of what the movie is necessarily. Like that's the hook. It's all based around that relationship with the brothers. But that's 100% right. It's one of those little, it's just like rats are apparently unicorns in this or raccoons.
That was a major surprise for me when they're just like looting, like they're scrawny and like holes. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, it's such a weird and interesting
Seward.
Right. Exactly. It's such an interesting choice, but it's not like that becomes the whole like 80 minutes of the 90-minute movie and then tacked on at the end. Oh shit, we have a relationship between the brothers thing. Like that's just kind of roughly what it's based around, and then everything else has been focused on the brothers, which has been really nice. And yeah, Barley, it's all historical. Barley, like, yeah, I think it's just because I play D&D, it's one of those things where you're just still calling, that's so cool. That's so cool. Like, I don't remember seeing it the first time, but when they're walking in the field, and it's a beautiful shot of them walking across the field to find Raven's Point, and you see an airplane flying above them, and it's such a surreal thing, because if D&D was real today and it was historical documents that we have just somehow pushed aside, you would see shit like that, and it's rad. I love it. But yeah, the 1, 2, 3, even the 0.5 punch, Sam, you're not wrong. Like it hit me in the feels this go around too, man. And I remember being kind of disappointed the first time I saw it. It was just like, I still don't really get. I mean, I get because I'm not an idiot, but like I'm not feeling why it was important that Ian do that. And this time I did. I just don't know if it hit me the right way. And, and it wasn't anything bad or crazy in the theater when we saw it that made me disassociate from it, but it was just a different experience this go around. Now, something we'll talk about, who was your favorite character, Sam?
Who's my favorite character? There was a lot of different characters that did some fun things. Gotta hand it off. They did an excellent job at animating some pants and giving it character. Who knew that a bottom half of a character could have so much, emotion or stuff tied to it? Now, I'm not going to go into logistics of the pants because there were some odd things there. But, that I really enjoyed. But in terms of favorite character, I don't know if I have just one. I don't think there's not one shining moment like this is my all-time favorite character. I don't think I can get that.
Yeah.
Maybe Tiny Barley.
Oh, my God, yeah. Tiny Barley. Oh, my God, you did it. That is huge. Guinevere's huge. Oh, wait, I'm small. What about you, Nate? What did you have a character that you really dug?
Not really, because it was just disappointment. Just to see a lot. I mean, as far as like characters were like the animation, you could tell went into their expressions. I think the Manticore had like the coolest like animated facial expressions, from where she was like subdued to like, I am the fucking Manticore. Like, I still don't know what it is, but like, when she became ferocious, like I just wanted to see her more developed, because I liked the character, I liked the woman who voiced her, and I just remember just the excitement in her face just seemed like more animated than everyone else. The anger in her face seemed more animated, because everyone else, I don't know because they're elves, they have tiny mouths or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like when the Manticore got pissed, like it was like always like right center of her, and you like saw everything. It's like the Grinch's smile. So I liked her a lot. Again, I just wanted to see her developed. I like the voice of the centaur. I mean, Ian and Barley they're the main characters. You're supposed to, I guess, like them and watch their development, but everyone seemed like, I would say the minor characters always have a harder job, because it's harder to be remembered.
That is true.
Like it's easy to remember Ian and Barley. It's not hard. And if you don't remember their names, you remember what they did, because there's hardly a scene without them. There no more than 2 minutes maybe go by without one of them in the picture. Like that's it. Because it's the Manticore and the mom, or the mom talking to the centaur or something. Like there really isn't much without Ian and Barley. So I would say the minor characters would have been my favorite, because they have a harder job to be remembered and to tie the story. Because you don't realize without that sword, they can't beat the dragon. Barley doesn't get to meet his dad. Ian doesn't get to. Well, I'm assuming Ian would still have the euphoric moment of, oh, Barley is, this person. I wonder if he'd have it if they didn't have the sword. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, that's the interesting thing. Like, I remember I watched a documentary on Dickens' Christmas Carol, and originally he wrote it where Scrooge woke up Christmas Day and he didn't go back and do anything for Tiny Tim. He was just like, Christmas is in my heart. Huzzah! Or there was a draft, I think, too, where he died. Like, he came back, like, he died in the pit, and he did, like, there was no redemption for Scrooge. And it's just like, well, no, you gotta redeem him. Like, you did all this other shit, you gotta redeem him. And it's like, no, no. And then he had a stave where he wrote, where he saved Tiny Tim, and Christmas was in his heart for always. And it's just like, oh, it's just, there's redemption in then there hills, and it's a fuller character. But, so here's the thing, I don't disagree with you. I was watching when they were in the car, I wanted to see more of Mom and the Manticore, you know, in retrospect, but I do wonder if it was something that was cut for time. Yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about, did anyone have complaints about the music choices in the movie? I know that's a weird thing, but outside of the March to Valhalla, I thought that they're trying to do like because usually the joke is that D&D people listen to like heavy metal or hard rock, and it was like Disney-fied version of hard rock, and you know what I mean? It didn't feel legit to me. Like, is it that hard? I know it's a D&D like world. Is it that hard to get the licensing rights to like Aerosmith or something, or AC/DC or Kiss or something? You know what I mean? Like, that was a weird, that's honestly, to be very honest, at the end of the day, that's the only thing I really walked away with going like, that's something they could have done better. I wanted, like, the March to Valhalla was just chef's kiss good. I completely forgot that he picked up the edge of the Guinevere, and that was like a red herring for the dragon at the end, because I was just like, oh, that looks like the jewel. I forgot. I was like, that looks like the jewel. They should pick that. Oh, he's picking it up. Good.
A car that can barely start or work, I thought it was really convenient to travel as far as it did and have great alignment, even over a rocky terrain at an angle where no car in the real world would be able to keep straight for that long, but that van did. And I commend that. Magic.
What did he say, Sam? Wasn't it something like, you know, he's like, you got to turn it just a certain way to get it to purr or something like that? Because
you couldn't do too far, you couldn't do too soft. You find it just right in the middle there, I think. Something like that.
So, I mean,
I like that Go was Onward.
I did too. I kind of wish they made a bigger deal of that in a weird way. I don't know why. Like, I felt like it was very appropriate to what they were trying to do in the movie. So sometimes, like, you know, when you see a TV show or a movie and they hit you over the head with the title of the movie or the show, you're just like, oh, don't do that. We know the movie is called the Santa Claus the movie. We don't need to say, hey, it's like, this is like Santa Claus. No, shut up. I don't need that. This was actually an okay one. I was like, you could have said it like probably 4 more times. I would have enjoyed it more. I don't know why. Well, Sam, I would say too that you and I tend to walk away enjoying the film a little bit more than Nate did.
Maybe just a little bit. Yeah.
Just a skosh. You didn't, but I don't think you would go out of your way to watch it again. Is what I'm.
No.
Well, there we go. Yeah, I wouldn't mind watching it again at some point. But with that said, Sam, what were some critique? Like, was there anything that bothered you with the movie though? Like on any type of level outside of the Chris Pratt kind of? And again, that's not really a problem, but like,
you know, so in most animations, there's always those few things that just don't make sense, that are unexplained. You know, for example, at some parts of the movie, like for example, the pants, they can't see anything, they can't hear anything, and then for other parts, they can suddenly hear things. And, like, they can suddenly find the brothers, even though they're far away. And you're like, how are you finding them? They're not walking, there's no vibrations, what's going on? And so small incongruencies like that always kind of make me upset, but, you know, not to any large degree. If I were to have any larger critiques about the film itself, I would have to, you know, go on the idea that there were a lot of forgettable characters. They introduced a lot of characters. You know, here's the math club, right? Who cares about them? Here's, you know, some cops that are along the line, or, you know, to be honest, I even forgot Barley's name through the entire movie. And Ashley kept saying, it's Barley, his name's Barley. I'm like, oh yeah, that's his name. Because it's just the older brother, right? He's, you know, I guess I didn't hear it that much if they did. I keep forgetting about the centaur. I didn't remember him at all. Like, there was a lot of forgettable characters for me.
Yeah, and well, they're all, I mean, unfortunately, when you do any type of movie in general, it tends to go a little bit more in animation where it's geared more towards family and not necessarily towards adults. Like, I kind of feel Soul was more for adults than it is children, but with Onward, it's definitely more for family. You know what I mean? Like, there's a family, like, you deal in absolutes and you deal in tropes and the trope characters. I'm surprised we didn't talk about this, Nathan, when we were talking about Ninja Turtles, but like the Ninja Turtle characters themselves are tropes. There's the teacher's pet, or it cares about honor. There's the party, the jokey one. There's the hothead, and then there's the smart one. Those are very basic tropes at a very basic level and they're color coordinated. So if you forget that, you can remember the colors, and then you can go, or vice versa. And it's kind of here. It's like one of them looks like a wannabe rocker who is he's older, and then there's the nerdy one. You know what I mean? And yeah, you're not wrong with some of the characters. Like, I couldn't tell you any of their names before I started watching the movie, and I'm probably, unfortunately, will forget the names again here in probably a few days or so after recording this. I won't remember the name. I'll just remember Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, and that's it. It's not like Mike and Sully or Scully and Monsters Incorporated. Like, I will remember those names. Those are powerful that stick out.
Sully's on another show that's amazing.
Well, it's Sully because it's Sullivan. That's right. See, yeah.
The X-Files theme is in 5/4, and that's not easy to do to make well.
Yes, Mulder and Scully, classic X-Files. But yeah, so I mean, that's really kind of it, guys. I mean, I feel like we've covered a lot on the film.
Well, I guess I know like your background, Nick. I guess visually, was there anything like you'll watch movies and you'll like, what I find wrong with it, I'll completely miss, like, you're like, well, that building was animated wrong, or like, did you see that horrible angle, or that shot? I don't know what that's called.
Poor filmmaking, but a bump.
I don't know if you guys notice any of that. Like, I don't know if if it's something you don't notice in animated movies. I don't know if there was anything where you're like, well, that building could have looked better. You could tell like they skipped this maybe with the design. I don't know.
I don't.
The water didn't.
I didn't feel that way with this. I mean, the only thing, I had it for a second and I lost it. It wasn't like a huge thing though, whatever it was. Like, I thought it was weird that, granted, when you're on the shady side of town, there's usually nobody out and about because it's the shady side of town. But there's a part of me that wonders, is it like a budgetary thing? They didn't have time or the money to put the extra background people walking around until they got into the store, because it was all about those biker pixies. But no, I don't really feel that there was any like filmmaking. I know what it was. Usually with Pixar and Disney movies, I can look out for the Easter eggs that they usually try to throw in. Like, I didn't see that this time. Or the name of the pizza shop from Toy Story, or the little icon, the little rocket ship. They usually put that or the car in the background of a movie somehow, of all of them. No matter if it doesn't make sense for the world, they'll find a way to put it in there somehow. And I didn't see the pizza place car. Yeah, that's really, I didn't really see anything. Sam, did you see, anything that was kind of off the rocker on that?
I'm bad at looking at that kind of stuff. I only really notice, like plot incongruencies or like small things like I talked about with the pants, but I don't notice that kind of stuff. I'm really oblivious, I'll be honest.
Well, no, that's Wizard really effing quick. Well, the whole beginning of the movie lost all merit. Like, don't start out a movie with these people have to work fucking hard to even create a fire spell. And love, okay, let's be honest. Love is not an excuse to fucking learn almost every goddamn spell and go from like, I don't know what a staff is, to like, oh, I can do everything all the time because I have will and love. No, like that threw me off. Like, either don't do that in the beginning, or change it. Don't say how hard it is and then tell me somebody can do it in less than 20 hours. Again, I know it's about the kids, I get it, but I hate stuff like that.
I don't think that's a kid thing though. I think that's storytelling 101.
Well, I found out that like my great grandpa or my somebody was like, hey Nathan, when you turn 38, you're gonna get this present. I would love to go on a goddamn journey. I'd love to go just go to the store and have money to buy stuff. But like,
here we are.
I hated that because they're trying, in one way, they're kind of trying to make it as realistic as they can. But then it's just like, oh, if you just believe you can, and that just really made me upset. Like, oh, of course he's going to learn all these powers because he's a main character. Like, it just kind of made me mad. Like, why do that?
Isn't that a thing about storytelling though? And not just for kids or adults. Is that
there's no way he would have learned it from that.
I disagree, man. Okay. I feel that he would. Like, the only difference is there might be tits and ass and explosions and blood.
I mean, let's look at Star Wars, 7, right, with Rey. She got powerful way too quick, more than any Jedi is supposed to. right?
Oh, yeah.
Which that's one of the things I had qualms with, but that's a different movie.
Well, but you're not wrong, though. I mean, but I feel like that's across the board. Like, even action stars, like, there has to be an arc for that character on multiple levels, and not just with one thing. So there's the emotional arc, which is him and the brother, right? But the whole thing is based around the concept that he needs to work the gym with the staff, right? Well, he has to be he has to go further enough that he can do that. And technically, you know, he learned it with the help of his brother, who was more historically more inclined to do what. I don't think he, until the very end. Well, I mean, you're not wrong in that.
I still enjoyed it. I just thought it was. I just hate when they're just telling a story and they're like, well, this is really hard. And then, you know, Ian, who has no formal training, just listening to a guy who read a book. Because you can't do anything real life, because Barley apparently proved that he is the most knowledgeable, useless person in this movie. He's knowledgeable, but he's fucking useless. All he can do is teach. He can't do it. So it's just like, oh, okay, so I am becoming now the best wizard in the world because my brother can tell me what to do.
Well, so that's the thing, right? I'm surprised from a D&D angle, they didn't make it more about what each person was in the party. Like, if the family is the party, right? Like the mom and the two boys, we now know that Ian is the wizard of the group.
I sat there the whole time like, well, what did Dad do with the staff? Like,
well, no, I don't. Yeah, I mean, that was, I think, is supposed to be vaguely a mystery. Like, the mom probably knew some of the weird stuff he got into, but like not. I mean, or maybe it was like a weird. I do know that people who are very sick, they will go and try horrible with most, and they understand it to probably not be real things because they're desperate. They want it to. I think a good example of that on film, and it's like roughly based around the truth, is the Man on the Moon Jim Carrey movie where he goes to, what was it, Nicaragua or something, to have like that healer. Supposedly he reaches into his body and like pulls out the cancer and tosses it into a thing and pulls it away. But really, it's all a joke. It's all a show.
John Coffey sucked out the evil from people. That's all I know.
Who's John Coffey?
The Green Mile.
Oh, Jesus. Isn't that horrible? It took me a second. Like, once you said Green Mile, I was like, yeah, sorry. You know, well, that's...
I get the mom to do something like... Either the mom and the dad had way separate lives, which the way that her body movement and voice suggested is that they were close. She loved him, he loved her. And I understand that I guess couples have secrets, apparently. But, like, I kept waiting for her to do something like, oh, look at this. Mom has... You know, Mom was a wizard too. Like, maybe she blinked and, like, you know, the dragon died. Not, I mean, but something, anything. Like, Ian was gonna, you know, magically shoot the sword with, you know, with this fucking splinter. By the way, not only does he have great power, but apparently you don't need the staff. You just need fucking 1/1000th of the fucking staff without the gem to move. So the gem was apparently irrelevant the whole time. It was just in his fucking heart again. But that's fine because Dad could have been there.
No. He needed the staff. He needed a staff, not the staff. Well, yeah, but he needed the gem still, though, on top of that, Nathan. He didn't. He had to have the gem and a staff, not the staff. Well, I'm very sure.
Yeah, it just showed him with the splinter, like, chew. Anyway, I wanted Mom to do something to show a connection between her and her husband.
Yeah, I think that's... Now, this is where it becomes, I think, it's a fan... This is where I agree with you. It would be like a family film thing, where that's too highfalutin for kids to deal with. That what is the mom? That's the thing they don't really talk about is what does the mom feel about all this? Like it's nice to see that she's supportive of her kids and she wants to see them see their dad one last time, because I'm sure as an adult she probably did get closure from her relationship, but they didn't really go into that per se. You know what I mean? Like, and that's way more heavier stuff to deal with than they're already bringing the dad back, and it's tough for the kids. Like, and the kids are the leads anyway. But well, I do know, if going back to my comment about the party, the mom would be the warrior. Mm-hmm. I feel very confident in that. But then that leaves Barley. What the hell is Barley? Like, we're still left with this.
He's the bard.
He's the bard. There we go. But doesn't the bard know magic too?
Yeah, I mean, they're a jack of all trades. So, I mean, it's not exactly, but, you know, I mean, and he wasn't good at magic, but, you know, he's very selfless about it. You know, he not once did he, like, was he jealous that his brother knew magic. he was very supportive and tried to help him to the best of his ability.
See, that's very true. And, and now, see, I wish my wife would have stopped the film later in the run and told me that, because that's very true too. Like, yeah, he is. He never once judges his brother. The only time he gets mad with him is when his brother hurts his feelings about the whole, you're a mess up, you're a screw up. And, and that's the thing too. It's true. Magic doesn't lie. Like, and I think that can be a convoluted answer. Like, I know some people don't love the whole thing. It's like your heart is pure or whatever. You're pure of heart. Well, what does that mean? There's no such thing as pure of heart. And I was like, I think there is, actually. I think that you can have shades of gray in how you approach things, but at the end of the day, do you approach things from a lighthearted perspective, or like just you hate everybody and you want to see them die, or horrible things? You know what I mean? Like, are you cruel to people on purpose versus I don't know. You know what I mean? That can fall into that same kind of realm a little bit. Let's see. I feel like I think that was the last thing we could kind of probably cover with this. Any final thoughts on anybody? Like, Nathan, final thoughts?
Not really. I mean, it's definitely worth watching once. It wasn't that it was still a good movie. It might be coming off that I didn't really like it. I did like it, but I would have no desire to, if I never saw it again, I'd be fine.
Fair enough.
I'll tell someone not to see it. If you like adventure, if you like the magic side or the, fantasy, then it's a great animated movie to watch.
There we go. All right, Sam, what about you, man? What are your final thoughts on the film? Was there anything else that you maybe wanted to mention and you just haven't got a chance to?
Well, there's one thing, and this is an appreciation thing. I really loved, I'm a fan of different myths and legends from different cultures all over the world, and I loved the subtle nods they had throughout the entire movie to all of, a lot of different types, like I said, of cultures, myths, and legends. We can break it down easily to a phoenix, right, where phoenixes are in multiple cultures, but he was a phoenix gem. You rise from the ashes. It makes sense that, that's why, that brings him back to life. Also, Barley had a phoenix written on his jacket on the very back. Hades was written on Barley's leather jacket as well. Hades, Greek mythology, so with the Pegasus that was on there. Guinevere is a Arthurian legend. The father's wearing a Gaelic knot shirt. The dragon dog is a Chinese style dragon from Chinese myths and legends. So there was pulled from just so many different cultures, and I loved all those little subtle nods.
Yeah, I didn't think about the dragon though. Because the Chinese and Japanese dragons are very thin, almost snake-like, usually with little wings and little hands and arms. So yeah, that's true. And I did think about Guinevere. I was like, oh, that's like King Arthur, dragons and knights and shit. I get that. Wow. But no, but you're right. That also feeds into the Phoenix and all that stuff, because the Phoenix is not necessarily Anglo-Saxon from myths and legends, is it, Sam? I feel like
so there, like I said, there's Phoenix records in ancient Chinese mythology, something similar to a phoenix in that. There's, a phoenix in some more Western cultures as well. There's a lot of, giant firebirds. And especially in Chinese, they have so many. They have something called a vermilion bird. They have a roc, which can be, one of bearer flames, which is, the giant bird. And, of course, they have the phoenix. So they have a lot of different firebirds per se in those kind of legends.
Do they have a Rodan? Oh, sorry, bad Godzilla. Some of that stuff is kind of loosely based on, very distantly based on some things. A
lot of the Japanese stories, come a lot from from China too. Even their language was adopted from, the Korean, Japanese, the kanji from Japan, and the Mandarin, and a lot of the characters are all have the same kind of root. So a lot of those cultures really intermingled until they started hating each other.
And isn't that weirdly interesting that they all started hating each other, but when they have so much as a common basis on some level, or it feels like they have a similar basis from each other, and they just all...
People split apart like that because it's just how they did terrible things to each other. There's some horrible things that happened between every single one of those groups. And that's just kind of people in general, unfortunately. So, no matter what common ancestor or, learning or, history we have, we always find a way to split ourselves apart. And, that's the goal, is to not do that. It's to try and remain together, but it's harder than, one would think.
Yeah. Well, I do know for one thing, though, Sam, if I ever do anything with Chinese or Japanese culture, I'm going to definitely have you on, because you just busted out, or mythology. You busted out way more info, which I eat that shit up, but I just don't know it all. Like, I will say this, if you haven't, I'd be surprised if you don't listen to it on some level, just because of how well versed you are. You ever heard the Myths and Legends podcast?
I actually haven't. I really don't listen to many podcasts. I don't have anywhere to listen to them, which is a big problem. I don't have time either.
Well, if you ever find a way to, I feel like that would be up your alley, because literally, and he majored in it. I think the guy who hosts it, he majored in it, and like he'll take it all, like, so like he'll look at like the 10 most prominent versions of one of the myths or the legends, and he'll condense it down and retell it into as best he can a full story. So like when he did Beauty and the Beast, Life Finds a Way, he found a way to combine all the different versions of Beauty and the Beast. And then he talks about the stuff where it's like the book was written during a time where, like, you know, the bourgeoisie were very much into, you know, women being very submissive or whatever, which was also weird because the French culture before, the women weren't that submissive to the men, and now it was like a thing. And like there's the appendices is like 100 pages of that, and he's like, we're going to talk about that at the end of the podcast because no one cares about that, and it doesn't really add anything to the story. So but that stuff like that, he goes all into it. You know, it's really interesting, especially with Arthur, the King Arthur legends. It's interesting because there's so many different versions of Arthur, or even the Greek gods and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me, I completely forgot Road to Valhalla. That's Norse mythology.
Oh yeah, with Thor and Loki and all that stuff. And
Valhalla is where, I mean, that's the afterlife.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah, I believe so. So once Ragnarok comes, they all go to Valhalla if they haven't gone already. Actually, doesn't Ragnarok destroy Valhalla?
Ragnarok is the end of all.
It destroys everything.
I believe so, yeah. It's the destroyer of the realms.
Well, it's the Ragnarok of this episode, unfortunately. But Sam, Nathan, thank you guys so much for doing the show. It was a blast to talk to you both about this. The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky is presented by D4K Studios. Executive producer is Nick Argenbright. Co-producers are Ashley Carlson and Catherine Ranella. The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky is also made possible by our Kickstarter backers. To see our backers, check out our show notes over at gbgpodcast.com. Our theme and end credit tracks for The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky are by chiptune artist Hide Your Tigers. You can check out their music by going to hideyourtigers.bandcamp.com. We also feature the track from Futurama, The Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings, an arrangement by our own Nathan Haley. If you enjoy our program, be sure to subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts and to leave a review or subscribe to wherever podcasts are streamed.
Get out of here without cheese! You're a creep! Go away! We're having a good time until you showed up, cheapers! Go have some coffee with cream or something! Because I'll tell you something! This is a happy place!